Hello, welcome, Trevor here. You did it, you bought the tab, and this is the step-by-step walkthrough tutorial for this beautiful chaos, the title track of the full album. It's a very special piece of mine, and I'm very excited to anytime I get to talk about it, really, because I love this piece so much. Hopefully you enjoy playing it, and I give you some helpful things. Everything that we go through in here, if you want to check out some more detail, I do have courses through Jamplay and TrueFire, but I also do one-on-one Skype lessons. So if you want to go into specific detail and question and answer, please feel free to always contact me directly. All right. So we're going to start. It's going to be the capo 4, but the tuning is D, A, E, F sharp, A, C sharp, which gives you this nice warm D major 9-ish chord here. And it's nice because when you have that specific chord, that open chord to come back to, it always feels like a nice home base in an open tuning like this. I do a lot of things in standard tuning. This is one that was nice to revisit some of the open tunings again. So here we go. Okay, so let's start here from the beginning. I'm basically just going all the way up to the 9th fret here. I guess, 9th fret with the would actually be on fret 13 there. But when you have the capo there, it moves everything up. But I'm basically starting there, and I have like a real just thumb, and it's sort of establishing the idea, establishing that note before the rest of it gets going. So you'll notice that that's the main melody that has all different sort of versions and different perspectives of that main walk down from the scale. So to get that started, we just start with one note, and sometimes that's all you need, right? So when you play that note, try to think about a vibrato. The vibrato will help you get more from that note than just, right? You'll get a little bit more movement, especially when you have some reverb. Right, just to give a little bit more, and I'm just sort of pivoting and just going back and forth. There's a couple of different types of vibrato. You can move the string itself, the B.B. King thing where you kind of like flick the wrist, but for this, we want to do a little bit more of sort of the classical vibrato there where you're just sort of going back and forth, right? So we're going to start with that and measure 1 here. Let that ring out. And then we're going to go thumb and index. That. Let's measure 2 and measure 3. Right? And then I'm kind of like, and each time I'm just adding a little bit more of that G so that eventually, so you're building up to that rhythm. Now that whole intro, I usually improvise. Sometimes I'll add an extra G in there, sometimes a little bit more, but as it's written, and I'm just kind of hopping back and forth. Whenever I have 2 eighth notes on a string, hop between your index and your middle. Go back and forth between those two. So, and I'm basically like, dun, 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 dun. And instead of going here, I have that open string, and that's why I'm hitting that D there. So that brings you all the way up through that whole intro. Just know that it's those 3 notes, but you can play them in a couple of different combinations. And if you ever hear me play it live, I play it totally different too. So, but on the recording, it pretty much just stays adding, just adds a little bit at a time. But then this is where it gets a little tricky. So after we get through measure 1 through 6, then it gets very specific in the pattern. The trickiest thing now as we get into measure number 7 is I'm hammering on after I do this kind of like the roll with the back of the thumbnail. So after I do that, what I'm doing, you'll notice that there are times that I will stop the note, and that gives you a really interesting effect, whereas if I kept it going, it doesn't have quite as much momentum or tension in it. Okay, so as we break that down, just keep in mind sometimes you'll have to start and immediately stop it. So you play and immediately return. This concept happens later in the song as well on the A string, but for right now on the low E string, at least in our tuning. You know, this is the low E string if it was in standard, but you get the idea. You got this. So as I strum down there, then I'm going to do the thumb, index, middle ring. You'll see it listed as PIMA at random points throughout the piece. So then I'm going up to there, and I'm doing the thumb and then the ring finger on the high E. And then the thumb again, and then index on G. Right there. But I'm not muting both of them again, just the low. Okay? And from there, I'm kind of like, because this is like a really nice low note, I'm sort of just accenting a little bit more on the A string. So this is in measure 7. Okay? And then from there, I'm pulling this off and then hammering back on. As I, in measure 8 there, I'm going the previous, and then index down here. Okay, and then after that, I'm in the second half of 8. Thumb, and then I'm pulling that off, and then hammering on the next time to start that pattern again. So it sounds like... So a lot of that movement is actually coming from a pull-off and a hammer-on, but when you speed it up, there's a lot of things happening there, and it sounds crazy until it builds up to the main melody, and that's the point. You want it to start off with the chaos until the beautiful part comes in. So back at 7. And all I'm doing is every time I come back to this one, when I'm at 10, instead of, then I'm gonna go. So I'm just going 2, open, 2, open on the B string, then back to 2, open. And then I do the same thing. Take your time with that pattern, and then again, measure 12, I'm just going, adding that extra right in there. So then once you get past each of those patterns, it has, so in measure 11, or sorry, in 12 here, so I'm going up to here, just sort of building up some of that from that pattern. And now what you'll notice is that the pattern changes slightly because now I'm adding the low and the high. So when I get into 11 and into 12, and then right before it gets to 15, where the main kind of, it slows down before the main verse comes in, I'm adding some extra, right, some extra patterns in there. So in 10, thing that I think is most important to keep in mind with this is that each of those individual strings builds to a sequence with the pattern. So take your time with this. There's a lot of little subtleties in there. And now once we get into the verse section, I think it's going to make a little bit more sense. But take your time to go through the tab. And if you have Guitar Pro, then you can sort of loop that section, which helps. But you bought this, so I hope that I can give you, a good amount of detail in this walkthrough video. Make sure that your thumb is in control. Boom. Start and stop the note. And then knowing exactly in the beat when you hop up to the A string and then back down. So now we've gone all the way. So that's the intro part. Then let's look at 14 as we work our way up to the verse. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm gonna go first and second, and then I'm doing thumb, index, and middle down here. Okay, and then middle and index down, or middle and ring on this hand. Hammer on to the 7th fret here. And remember the 7th, this becomes the 7th fret because of the capo there. And what I like to do here, I hammer this on here. You can slide or hammer that on. And I want to, as you hit this note here, make sure that you do a little vibrato while you hit that low string. I think it gives like a really nice effect. And then I go to the 5th fret, pull that off. And then this chord right here, which is basically just a scale and a chord there. Put your 4th finger on the 4th fret of the D, 3rd finger on the 3rd fret, 2nd finger on the 2nd fret there, then your 1st finger goes all the way down. Okay, that gives that nice suspended sound. Okay, now verse 1, so we're in 16. Now there's a lot of movement in here, but let's break down what's happening. What you have to make sure you do is lift that 2nd finger off, so it goes... Okay, but at the same time have this ringing, and I stagger that. You see that squiggly line will mean a stagger between this and the higher string, your bass notes and the higher string. Okay, from there, and now I'm going, okay, so what I'm gonna do is the pinky, and then 1, 2, 3, and then lift off 1 and 2. And then I'm gonna go pinky on the 8th fret, and then 1st finger on the 5th there, and then 3rd finger and 2nd. But this is gonna be ringing the whole time. So you have, and now we're gonna go, okay, what I'm gonna do is the 1st finger on the 4th fret of the low E, and then pinky's gonna grab 7 up here. And then 2nd finger is going to go 5th all the way on that D. And then I'm basically just hammering this on and then lift that off. Okay, and then 1st and 2nd on the 2nd and 3rd. So 1st and 2nd, and I'm going to hit that with index and ring down here. And now... That's easy because that's the open chord. And then back to this we did before. And now this is at the end of measure 19. Put your 1st finger on the 5th fret there. Then you have an open D and then the 6th fret. And then from there, we're going to repeat the same thing with a couple of subtle changes in here. So what we want to do is go back up here. Okay, and then back to... keep that A string ringing. Give yourself time to get all of those notes ringing. And then we have... Now what I'm doing here is something a little counterintuitive. I'm going to a lower string for a higher pitch. So when I have this open B, this is at the end of 21, I have the open B, but then I hammer on the 5th fret here, 3. Now I add that there, pinky goes on there, and everything else stays, and now you lift it off when you go to 22. Now I'm just adding a little bit of emphasis and changed a little bit to this note from previously. Now 23. Now pull that off, the 2nd off, and then here's where it gets tricky. When you have these artificial harmonics, typically what you'll do is line up with a fret. You touch with your index and then you pick with this part right here, right? You pick with the thumb. Well, the trickiest part about this is because we're on the 4th fret, you're off the fretboard. So what do, right? You have to sort of play until you can nail this. Now on my guitar, it's literally right off the fretboard. And we'll have some harmonics coming up in this next section where you really do have to find them here. So you have to imagine, okay, where is fret 24? Where's fret 20? You can think that way or go through trial and error and do what I did. When I was recording, I just took a red marker and I just put them on here. So you couldn't see it, but I could, you know. I don't have the red markers on here now because now I know where those are, but don't ever feel afraid to do that to find where those harmonics are. Who cares? If it sounds good, do it. That's the point. All right, so when you get to, after we've gone from 22, 23, as that's ringing, I use that as an opportunity to jump all the way up to here. Now what you have to do is make sure that when you get up to here, don't mute that string. Make sure that that harmonic rings out. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to grab, I'll go all the way up so the ninth is here. And then I'm going up to, which would be 13 up here. And then this says 19 and 19. Again, that's the same region as where you did this, so you have to go right off the fretboard on my guitar. It might be different on yours. And we're doing that on the A and G strings. Now what I'm doing here is after I'm going, I'm doing the second finger here, open there. So we have 19, 19, and then the third finger is going to go here on the 10th fret. Okay, and I'm just basically going back to those open G and B strings to fill in the cracks in between the beat there. Now here's where it gets really tricky. I have to, you know, it's almost what would be fret 22 if the capo is here, but this is going to be almost to the middle of the sound hole with this pressed down, and that's, it's weird. Again, find where it is on your guitar and just make a little mark. Okay, and I'm basically going back and forth, back and forth. This note is the same as that, I'm just doing it in a harmonic. And so you'll notice that sometimes a harmonic is the same pitch as a fretted note, but it's kind of nice to get a little bit of a variation in the sound. It's the same pitch, but it's a different sound, which is cool. Okay, and now in measure 25, we play this, and then you're basically going, so 19, 19, 19, 19. And as those are ringing out, I scroll down in the page here, so we're in 26. As those are ringing out, take your fourth finger and go down to the fifth fret on the A, and use your thumb and then the ring finger on. Okay, and now I'm just sort of going back to the idea that I started at. And that pattern's going to come up from time to time, but you go after the and I pull that off. Now, why do I go up here? Because if I have to go back here, it's very hard to get there from here, right? But if you vary this, those are the same pitches, but you get a little bit of a different sound from that, and also the hammer-on gives a little more emphasis to it. Right, and then back to this again in 28. So now in 29, so after we get to, let's start at 28 again. So I'm gonna go from, I'm doing, instead of this, I'll just play these out of, oh, that sounded cool actually, but it should be the B string. And then all I'll do is play those out of order, starting on the G. Sometimes I'll go just play them a little bit out of order and that's fine. But in this case, and then go back to here. And now 31, do first and second. You'll notice that as you get playing, your guitar might get a little bit more out of tune just because of the nature of the tuning and then the capo, so stop and make sure you retune. I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so now we're back into 32 and you're going to go... which is just sort of echoing back to where we started in the intro part, right, when we went to that. So in 31... sort of slow strum. Okay, and then instead of now in the beginning, now we're going from hammer on to 7 to 5. And then 3rd fret, then pull that off. And this, instead of going to this chord now, here, take your 3rd finger off. I think it gives a slight difference. Again, when you come back to something that feels familiar, but there's something different about it, it's always fun for my ears, so that's why I put those in there. Okay, now we're at verse 2, so this is number 35 here. Back to that, we did that again. Now measure 36. Hammer on. Now I wanted to make sure this is a little bit different. You're going to go first and second on 2 and 3. This is the second half of measure 36. Put your 1st finger on G, and then your 2nd finger is going to go here on the 3rd fret. Okay, and now we're going to go, and I just go index and ring, and then thumb and middle. So I'm kind of like bum, bum, hopping back and forth. So G and E, and then the D and B up to there. So you have 37, and now we have Now, I'll vary these as any arrangement. Every time I play it, it can be slightly different. So take some liberties there as you're playing through this. Okay, and then from here, I'm in measure 39. Okay, now we have measure 40. Now, this is where this changes a little bit. You're going to go, so you're going to hit the open A, and then this 2 and 3. So let's break that down. We have open and hammering on 3rd finger to the 4th fret on the A. And then we have the G, and then I have this note right here. The 1st fret there, and instead of going, you want to make sure you go here and then pull that off to there. So you have I'm used to playing this quicker, so it's kind of a fun exercise, and this highlights for me the things I know I have to work on. And what I want to do here at the end of 41, you could do your 3rd finger, but what you really want to do is make sure you hammer on here, but you're switching positions to go all the way back up to our to get those harmonic parts. So at the end of 41, make sure use those open strings as a moment to hammer on all the way up to the 3rd fret. And I do the same thing. You know, get a really nice vibrato in there with good reverb. It sounds awesome. And now all I'm doing is first finger on the 5th fret of the G, and then put your 4th finger on the 7th, and you're just sliding that up to the 8th, and then put your 2nd finger on the 6th fret of the low. So you have... Now, and I usually slide that all the way up to 13 to start this pattern again. So that hopping back and forth between harmonics and fretted notes, take your time with that. And now I'm going, remember that same thing again, and then back and measure 45, pinky on the 5th fret. And then 46. And what I like to do here is just add an extra. I'm just adding an extra E in there to give some variation. 47, you come back and do the E with your ring finger. And now what I'm going to do here is actually go, I'm going 19, 19, and by the time I get to this 19, I actually hammer on 11, and then I go all the way up. Again, this is another experimentation. This is a little bit more like the second half of the sound hole to get this. So you have this. And then as that's ringing out, we go down. Okay, and that has some variation to it as well. Sometimes I'll add, or sometimes, you can have some freedom with that one. Then, here we go, measure 51. This is a slight variation yet again on the same melody. Now we'll just keep that chord. So you have, and then your 2nd finger is going to go to the 8th fret. And then this is still ringing out. And this is still ringing out while you do that. And now we go. Right? And I'm just adding in the melody. Right? That's the melody that we're climbing down, but then keeping in between with those open strings and the 5. I'm going kind of like the thumb is grabbing these bottom few. 3rd finger on the 3rd fret here with the 1st finger, but the A, your ring finger down here. So in measure 54, okay, after I'm doing this, you use your index, then your 2nd and 3rd, and then up to here. Now, in 55 is where we're getting to a bridge, but it's sort of echoing yet again the pattern that we started with. So you have, so that same dun dun dun, it's all the same note, but there's a cool emphasis because you're using different strings, different fingers. Otherwise, if you look right at the notation, it's, but that's the cool thing about guitar. The same note with 2 different spots. I love it. Okay, and I'm doing the same that we started with way at the beginning. And I'm just adding this in at different points within that pattern. adding every time I hit, or not every time, but I'm going to emphasize this sometimes with an A string. Now you have. And now the pattern is going to change, and I'm going to actually do a sort of build up here, but you're going to be muting the A string instead of the low string that we did at the beginning. Now this goes from here. Okay. And what you'll do here is after you go at the end of 60, after you this hammer on this, at the same time as you hit this high E here, that's where you have to, that's in 61. You have to hit the A. And getting used to the control of this still ringing out, but this not. So at the end of 60, lot within that. There's a, you know, we're repeating a lot of same notes, but you're playing them on different strings. Okay? Then after that, now I'm doing the same thing with these chords. The next part, the same thing. I'm moving back and forth on here, and then I'm putting the pinky up here. Sort of building that up, but it keeps the same pattern going on this hand. But now I'm here. So at the end of 64 and then 65. Pinky here and then second finger on 4. Make sure you do that. Okay, so after you do this, you're gonna kind of that's kind of what's happening with the bass notes there as the other strings are going. The best way, I think, to learn this is to line up so that each individual event is happening at a time. So don't visualize, okay, doing the bass notes, then doing the treble notes, and then trying to put them together. In the end, the easiest way is going to be to memorize. Don't think, you know, horizontally as you're going through the tab, one part and then another part on top. Think vertically, meaning one event at a time. My thumb hits this when the ring hits this, and memorize it that way. So 62. Now we're in 65. Now after you get here, now we're in 66. After that. Now this gets a little bit weird because we've sort of switched. This note goes up a little bit higher, so it can feel like it gets counterintuitive with your fingers, but that's okay. Everything stays the same. Now we have, okay, after, you're going to do the first finger on the 5th fret, second finger on the 6th. Okay, then the pinky goes all the way, the pinky, don't use your pinky on that, use your index instead of that, because you have to line up your pinky to get the very next part. All right, and this is gonna be in measure 69 there, so you have, and what you'll do here is pinky, and then you have an open G from there. So then what you'll do is you actually have in 69, you go ahead and pull your index and then the pinky at the same time. And that's the same here, pinky down to the index and then pinky index here. So after you do that, and then make sure instead of here, make sure you get to the 7th. 11, and we're gonna do that with an open D there. Okay, from here you have 8 with your second finger, then you have open, and then I typically do this. I like to do that with the 4th finger because I feel that's a little bit easier to keep you in line here. So we have. Make sure you go all the way up to the 11th fret. It's easy to go there, so. And make sure as you. Just practice where you're landing the rest of that slide. And then you go from 4, this is in measure 69, you go from that 4 all the way up to 11 and hit the G at the same time. And then I just usually pull that up. I hit the index, and now we're at this bridge build-up section with these chords. What you want to do is these chords are fairly simple. It's just the pattern gets a little bit weird with this hand. So all I'm doing is index on the 5th fret, 7th fret with the 3rd finger, and then take your pinky up here. Ready? So let's try that again. So I just keep this going consistent, and then I'm just dropping back and forth between index 3rd, index 3rd. So. And now, this is a weird chord here. But instead of going to the 7th here, you have to make sure that you put the 7 on the B string, and then take your 2nd and your 3rd finger and go to 9. And you'll notice that there's some kind of like a right, and just feel that out. It's hard to write that kind of thing in the notation, get it perfectly. It's very much a feel thing, but that's what's happening. Sometimes you emphasize the bottom part of the chord, and sometimes it's the full one. So half strum, full strum, and then what you'll do is to go. All I'm doing is when I add the pinky on the 10th fret here. I'm taking this off, so you get the sound of that. Where if I kept it, it doesn't have quite of a distinction to that. So we have. And then I'm doing the same kind of thing here. You just move that up so you have the 7th fret and the 9th fret all the way up to the 10. And then you just move that up so we have the 7th fret, 9, and 10, so it's the same. But now when we go to the next chord, you're gonna, instead of going, that's not gonna work, so you have to you're gonna go down to your 2nd finger here on the G. So you have, that would be on the 8th fret there. Okay, so let's go. And now, this is a really cool part here. I'm going, and what I want to do is go 11, and then I have a 10 here. So you get a lot of movement in here, and why I think this is cool is because I'm playing an open A here, and then I'm going all the way up here, which usually wouldn't sound good, especially on the A string, but in context of the strum, it gives a really nice texture to the chord. Then I have this kind of strum right there. So far we have from measure 70. notice I kind of stopped like just to give a slight variation. You just have to stop it all with this hand right here, and then you go up to here. Now we have an open, and then you have the 9th fret, and then use your pinky to actually go what would be the 12th fret here. So we have, let that ring out. That's in measure 74. And now that sort of rings for an indefinite amount of time. And then the next part is gonna go the 12th fret, and I usually hit that with the pinky there. Okay, and this chord, that's what we did before. So you're gonna do the pinky on 10 and then 7, 8, 9 with index, middle, ring. So you have, and now false harmonic there, or not false harmonic, the artificial harmonic on the 12th fret of the B. And then this is kind of weird because you're playing a 4th fret on these, right? Pick closer to the bridge, and that's going to give you a little bit of a brighter sound. The other thing is stagger it, because that also helps with that. And then I have the 7th fret on the G and E with 3rd and 4th. And I'll stagger those sometimes as well. And then first finger is going to go here. And what I'm going to do here is, instead of doing it open there, you want to make sure you do the 5th fret. Okay? The tricky thing is making sure that you don't mute this while. So you have to kind of like reach over with your 3rd finger there. Okay? And now we have, what we're doing here, and then pull off pinky, and then pull that off into there, into the second, to measure 78 second, all the way up to 4, and then you're gonna put your first finger here and here. So we have, okay, now we get to the bridge part. This is in measure 80, and this part is very, very simple, and just think playing light and very delicate. And what I do is I sort of avoid playing this until I get a little bit later in that measure, the G. So I have just 2 and 5, 2 notes. So you have 5 and 2 with 4 and 1, and then 4 and 1. Then we have, now I add that in. 81. Now in 82, we have stagger those. So you have thumb, and then you have the second, your first finger on the 2nd fret there, but use the open G. Then in 82, you basically are going back to here. Now you add in and stagger that. And I'll do like the thumb and then the ring, index, middle. And then I go like this. Okay? But instead of using your 3rd finger here, use your 1st finger, because the next chord, as that's ringing out. Okay? And in order to do that, you can't do that here and then try to get this part. So you have to go lift that off. And I just use the open string as my moment, as that's ringing out. Use that as an opportunity to switch. And as you get to this chord, make sure this and this is still ringing out. And then I have 84. Now I'm going to do all 4 of these. Adding in the thumb and index. Then we have, now this is kind of a cool little, I'm going the index in 2nd, 3rd here, and then thumb, index, middle, ring here. It gives a nice little effect. This slides back and this hammers on, but making sure you don't mute that B. That's the real trick. That's the trick there. Then you can just sort of pause for a second, and then I use my 1st finger all the way up on 10. And I go 10, and then Okay, and I do 19th fret artificial harmonics. For me, it's right off the fretboard. After I go, okay, and then I'm just doing a 12th fret harmonic, 12th fret harmonic. And then I'm going to the 5th fret here, and I use that with the 2nd finger. And then here, I have the index on the 4th fret here, and then the pinky there on the 7th fret. And then I actually will pick the B while lifting that off, so it sounds like this. Okay, you can do different, finger combinations of that 12th fret harmonic, that's fine. And then to land this whole plane, it's gonna go. And all I'm doing there and then from here I'm going back to this chord that we had done before, which goes the thumb. Okay, and then, now all I do here is take my time until I go to the end, but I'm accenting those lower strings. You can go slow, ebb and flow with it, and give a nice kind of like vibrato. That up, and then I just hit that whole chord here. I sort of slow strum and without playing that high E right there, and that's how I end the tune, and usually some reverb and delay going on. So there's quite a few complex little patterns, but in the end it sounds more fluid and simple, and that's what you want. Oftentimes the things that sound most simple are deceptive, right? And you dig into the patterns, you're like, that's a little more complicated. So this is one of those pieces for me. So I hope that some of the things we went through today were helpful for you. If you get stuck, always feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm available for Skype lessons. I'm just happy to, the most passionate thing I am about in the world is this music. So to get to talk about it with you would be awesome. So thank you for checking this out, and I will see you soon. Take care. Thanks. Bye.